Woo! I am live. I am alive, guys. Welcome to the Jupiter transit Cancer video. Oh, actually, can you guys hear me? I don't know what's going on there, but let's see if you guys can hear me. Take me to my channel, please. Just stay with me, guys. There we go. Hold on. Jupiter and Cancer video. I can't hear myself. Okay, perfect. You can hear me. That is absolutely fantastic. So I am going live today because I have to do the Jupiter and Cancer video. Now, normally I would have made sure that you guys understood when this was going to premiere and I had the date planned, but I just realized that I have to finish 2 modules this week. Apparently, I have a shorter schedule for the modules. I thought it was just 1 module, so I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I have to go live today, or by the time I post this video, the transit will be over." So that doesn't really make sense. So let's not waste any more time. Let's jump into it. This is probably going to be my last transit video for this month at least. I did say I'd probably do at least like 1 or 2 transit videos a month, at least for the time being. I know some of you have found me through astrology and you want me to do more astrology. So here I am providing that astrology for you guys. I hope you're having a beautiful Monday and that everything is good for you. I'm a little bit, under the weather a little bit on my end today, but I still want to get this out for you guys. So let's jump into it. As always, I have my script ready to make sure I have all the information for you guys perfectly laid out and ready. And let me fix this really quick so I can read this. There we go. So if you don't know, guys, in Vedic astrology, Jupiter is in Cancer. Yes, that is right. I know it is already there when it comes to Western astrology, but when it comes to Vedic astrology, Jupiter entered Cancer October 18th, 2025, this year. That was last week. And it will be in Cancer for 48 days, guys. For 48 days we will have Jupiter in Cancer, so it's going to be there until December 5th, and it goes retrograde around Thanksgiving, and then it will re-enter actually, I'm not really sure when it goes retrograde, but let me actually get that date for you guys, because I'm like, I want to make sure we have all the dates in the video. So I want to make sure that I'm getting this correct all in one place. Okay. So Jupiter will be retrograde on November 12th. That's when it's going to go retrograde. All right. So on the 12th of November, it will go retrograde and it will still be in the sign of Cancer until December 5th. And then it will leave and go back into Gemini and Vedic. And it will not be back in the sign of Cancer until June 2nd. And Jupiter will officially leave Cancer and enter Leo on October 31st, 2026. So let's get this dates again. Jupiter entered Cancer on the 18th of October. Jupiter will leave Cancer on December 5th. Jupiter will re-enter Cancer on June 2nd, 2026. And it will actually leave Cancer on October 31st, 2026. So you guys get that clean cut and edit if you want to clip this up. So the last time we had Jupiter in Cancer was June 19th, 2014 to July 14th, 2015. So some key events during this time period is that the U.S. was, well, it was in a bit of a rough period in terms of economic recovery, but it was good. It was good that it was going through a recovery. So U.S. employment fell below 6% for the first time since the 2018 crisis. More people were finding jobs through though underemployment and stagnant wages remained an issue. So we also had cheaper fuel costs. So there was global oil prices collapsed in late 2014, reducing gas and energy bills in the US, the UK, and India. This gave the middle class and lower class households more disposable income for everyday needs. We also had some marriage equality advances. So, a wave in the US of federal court rulings were struck down, state bans on same sex marriage. By the end of 2014, marriage equality had expanded for more than 30 states, marking a major cultural and social transformation. And then there was also the outbreak which began in the early 2014, which was under Jupiter and Gemini, but really it escalated in Cancer, and this caused a 1,500 deaths. This was the okay, Ebola outbreak. I don't know what word my mouth wants to say. This was the Ebola outbreak, caused 1,500 deaths, 15,000 deaths, sorry, in Guinea, Liberia, Sierra Leone. Um, a lot of the healthcare systems were overwhelmed. Then we had a lot of airport screenings. International travel was disrupted. Aid and organizations mobilized in the U.S. Dallas confirmed the first case of Ebola September 2014, followed by infections and healthcare workers, sparking public anxiety, which dominated the news and global cycle. So that was some of the backstory when it came to 2014. I definitely remember those time periods and how the news, it was all over the place when it came to the Ebola outbreaks, and definitely the marriage equality advances. That was a huge story all throughout 2014 and very positive news. At least in my mindset, it was very positive news. Now, before then, July 5th, 2022 and July 30th, 2023. That was when Jupiter was transiting Cancer in Vedic astrology the previous time before the 2014 to 2015 period. So during this period, the euro actually became like everyday money. So what happened was people had to learn a new currency overnight. So the euro was sort of there, but there weren't like physical bills. So the overnight, the euro replaced marks, francs, lira, and others. So many of the prices rose on basic bread and coffee, while cross-border shopping became easier. So the change created a psychological divide. Older citizens mourn the loss of the national currencies, while younger generations embrace the euro as part of a shared identity. I never even really thought about the euro that much, because for me it almost felt like it was always there, but I had no clue that the physical bill, the physical bills and coins came into action in 2020. Oh gosh, I can't even speak today. In 2002. Geez. Okay. There was also during this era, we had the anti-Iraq war protests, February 15th, 2003. This was one of the largest coordinated global demonstrations in history, with an estimated 12 to 30 million people in a lot of cities. I think over 600 cities worldwide protesting the impending Iraq invasion. So it was an unprecedented display of global solidarity, which, pretty impressive. There was also mobile phone usage spread across Asia and Africa. So cell phones were rapidly replacing landlines, even in rural areas. So families connected for the first time, and businesses ran more efficiently, and daily communication shifted dramatically. Sorry, I'm stumbling over my words, guys. I'm a little tired, but bear with me. If you're coming in, I'm going over Jupiter and Cancer, and I'm just going back through some history really quick. So also during this time period, we had China's economic rise after joining the WTO in 2001. China's manufacturing boom accelerated. Households worldwide saw cheaper consumer goods, clothing, electronic toys, flooding stores and reshaping spending habits. Now today, we pretty much have this, I don't know, what do you want to say? I don't want to say take for granted, but we've had this sort of like understanding that so many of our household products are from China, from clothing, from perfume, from bags. And this really was a part of the boom of 2001. I'm used to the 20th century, guys. 21st century of 2001. So this is when China started going global and becoming that manufacturing powerhouse. So that was actually really amazing. There was also some food insecurity in Southern Africa. So there were droughts followed by flooding and cyclone. I can't pronounce the name of this. I think it's Japhanet in 2003, which devastated maize crops in Mozambique, Zambia, and nearby regions. Families faced shortages and higher food prices, directly straining household budgets. So that is very unfortunate that occurred. Now, in South America, under Jupiter in Cancer, families felt the fallout of the early 2000s economic shocks. Argentina was hit the hardest with its banking collapse and soaring poverty. Uruguay faced its own banking crisis, and Bolivia erupted in protests over tax hikes. And even Chile and Brazil felt a slowdown. But during this same Jupiter and Cancer period, governments and communities began taking steps to stabilize. So social policies expanded in countries like Brazil and Chile, aiming to protect the poorest of households and narrowing inequality. And by 2003, poverty and inequality indicators in parts of the region started to show modest improvement. The first signs of the crisis it was the first signs that the crisis were being contained. Okay. So actually showing some improvement there. And in 2014, 2015, just to jump back or jump further along, a decade later, the challenge came from collapsing commodity prices and slower growth across Latin America. Families again felt the squeeze with groceries and wages under pressure, but unlike earlier downturns, the region had stronger social programs in place. Brazil's Bolsa Familia and Mexico's Oportunidades Prospera, I'm struggling through the words, and similar initiatives across the continent were in place. These acted as buffers in helping families keep afloat. Growth was weak, but inequality didn't spiral out of control in the way that it did in the past. So you can see how Jupiter in Cancer came through to improve and put in place these social programs to help the poorest of communities, very much like Jupiter energy, right? Protecting the weak, protecting the people who can't fend for themselves, people who are in positions of, what do you want to call it? I don't want to say inequality, but they're lesser on the totem pole, especially when it comes to wealth, when it comes to opportunities. You can see how Jupiter in Cancer brought about these programs that could help people be resilient during tough times. So in both times in South America, it was facing a economic crisis, but what stands out is the resilience. Governments and households adapting, safety nets expanding, and inequality not worsening as bad as history might suggest. In other words, even in difficulty, There was a cradle of protection, softening the blow, very much like Jupiter's energy. So keep that in mind while we're in this period. Jupiter is known as being a very protective planet. Even from an astronomy perspective, Jupiter is known because of such a big, massive planet. It protects the Earth from a lot of different like asteroids and other cosmic things going out there in the universe, comics. I'm not an astronomer, but I do know Jupiter has that protective quality just from a universe standpoint. And even in astrology, it shows that Jupiter is acting as a cradle of protection, as I mentioned, softening the blow when it comes to economic crisis. Now, if we compare themes across both time periods, we do see that recovery from financial crisis. In 2002 and 2003, the world was recovering from the dot-com crash. Now, excuse me, the 2001 recession was rough and the rebound was weak. Unemployment stayed high, job creation was sluggish, and many households felt squeezed. It was weak, and the recovery was uneven, and households really did feel that drag. So in 2014, 2015, the world was recovering from the 2008 crisis, and this rebound was stronger and more visible. Unemployment clearly fell. More people were working through, though wages still kind of were, they're a little iffy. They were underpaid, but people were working. It was an improvement, but it was not full relief. Okay, so you see this shared theme of economic recovery in both periods. Even though in 2002 is a little bit weaker, it still showed some improvements there. Another overlap is that we have some health concerns. So in 2002, 2003, there was the SARS epidemic spreading across Asia. A lot of people had to undergo quarantines. The whole thing with masks, everything we had to do during COVID was going on in 2002 and 2003 in Asia. It definitely disrupted family life, businesses, just created a lot of different fears. And then in 2014, 2015, we saw, as I mentioned before, Ebola. It escalated in West Africa, and then it reached the US, which sparked a lot of fears and a lot of widespread anxiety. So we see in both periods, we have those health crises spilling into everyday routines shaping how families and people just live their lives. Another overlapping theme is we see this homeward pull. So in 2002, 2003, post 9/11, I don't know what word I'm saying, post 9/11, travel hesitancy and weak economy rebound meant fewer big vacations. So families stayed local, spending more time in their households with their kids. No more of these long trips. They couldn't afford them. And then in 2014, 2015, a lot of people were under tight budgets. There was student loan debt. It's at an all-time high right now. Wage stagnation, limited international travel, though there was cheaper gas, so that was good in terms of domestic travel, but many households chose to do staycations or short trips. That's kind of like what happened during that time period. So in both periods, you see this pull inward and into the home, but it's not by, necessarily choice, more so circumstances. So you see that energy of Jupiter and Cancer kind of putting people in their home. It's not just because they felt inspired to do so. It's because they got to save that money. They got to save that coin. Times are tough. One thing I did see on the internet when people were talking about Jupiter being in Cancer is that people kind of said that people are going to get pregnant. There's going to be a lot of people creating families. Just from a historical perspective, that is not true. Jupiter in Cancer does not necessarily promote familial growth. It can promote, as we see here, time at home, but it's usually because of the economy is a little shaky. But generally, Jupiter in Cancer still has nothing to do with the birth rate or having things be increased. It's the same amount of people being born. When I looked at the research, births were still on the decline in both periods. In 2002, 2003, and in 2014 and 2015, Jupiter in Cancer did not have an uptick in terms of births. So, there's also one more thing with dating and family formation under pressure. Okay, so in 2002, 2003, there was a lot of economic uncertainty, like I was talking about. So people were very cautious when it came to their dating choices. And a lot of people would lean into looking to more family oriented partners, people who had a lot of long term security in mind. And then I think we all remember 2014, 2015. There was definitely economic pressure, but it's just a different reaction. Where in this case, more people were delaying marriage, children, and even serious relationships. In 2014, 2015, what was really popular was hookup culture. And I think even now we still have that delay when it comes to starting families, having children, getting married. But I don't think hookup culture is as prevalent. People still are interested in the apps and everything along the lines of that. But I've just noticed a shift. Maybe I'm wrong, but I've just noticed a shift in the way that people approach lately. But I do still see that hesitancy when it comes to like, let's start a family, just because of the response to the economics. And I think that matches up to with what has been told. Me personally, I work in a healthcare environment, and one thing that has been said, and one thing that I've seen through research and what doctors and people who deliver children say, is that people are having less children. So, as I said before, Jupiter in Cancer is not giving that uptick. Now, what can we expect this time? Well, given all of the overlapped energies of what happened both of these times, this is what I believe we can expect with Jupiter and Cancer. Well, first of all, we may find that people are making security first choices. People are leaning towards being more cautious, being more stability oriented. There's going to be some decisions that are keeping the long-term plan in mind. Less risk taking. Not saying that there's no risk taking, just less, being more mindful of that in terms of finances, jobs, moves, investments. This is all of the things that I believe is going to be happening just on an everyday basis. I feel like growth is going to come from protecting, the baseline before expanding. When it comes to economic consolidation, which I believe is going to be happening, there's going to probably be more of a focus on saving, paying debts, budgeting, rather than, like I said, gambling, taking those big risks. I believe, just like in the earlier cycles, more people may feel called to be at home or just not out as much. I think we already see that now. As I mentioned previously, people are eating out less, people are going out less, budgets are tight. And so Jupiter in Cancer this next 48 days, definitely I feel as though people are going to be, buckling down and ensuring they aren't spending too much, especially since the holidays are coming up. People are probably going to want to save to make sure that they have enough money to give gifts or have any holiday celebrations that they want. As we mentioned, this goes until December 5th. And then it goes back into Gemini, where we can spend all money. And then we also may have some healthcare awareness. Now, we may not have a big crisis like SARS or Ebola, but we may. But I just feel people are going to be more health conscious. There's probably going to be more so some anxieties when it comes to maybe what they eat, what they do, how they go out, where they go out with, just more safety concerns or just general health concerns or wellness concerns. Okay. And then when it comes to dating and relationships, one thing I did notice about both time periods is that there was an expansion opportunities. If you think about it, as we mentioned before in my last video, when we were talking about Saturn and Purva Bhadrapada, Match.com started during this time period, like the 1996, 1995 or something like that. Back in 2002, 2003, yes, Match was there. There was still a little bit of stigma attached to it, but technically the opportunities to expand and meet more people outside of your radius was still prevalent. And in 2014, 2015, we all know there are so many different avenues to meet people. There's like Facebook dating, there's Bumble, there's Tinder, there's all different niche apps. People meet through Reddit forums. Like there's so many different ways that people are meeting people nowadays. Even if you look at something like 90 Day Fiance, they're always meeting through the most random online different forms. Sometimes it's in person, but essentially there are more opportunities to meet people in dating. But in both time periods, people were cautious when it came to who they were connecting with and who they were committing to. So that is something that was there. Now, let's get on to you guys' signs. And if you're just now coming in, I'm going over the energies of Jupiter and Cancer. I would have premiered this and like scheduled it, but I did not realize I had 2 modules to do this week. You guys know I'm in grad school, so so I was like, I got to do this now for you guys. You know, I don't want to wait another week, and it's only here for a short time period. It's 48 days, so let's get this out. Now for Aries, or sun, moon, and rising, that goes for everyone. You can look at your sun, you can look at your moon, you can look at your rising. This is in Vedic astrology, just to repeat that. So for Aries, this is going through your 4th house of home, family, security. There may be shifts in your home life, your long-term stability. You may feel pulled to redefine your roots or what security looks like to you. Sometimes this can be moving in a way, or maybe even downsizing. You know, if you feel like you're spending a lot on your mortgage or your rent, you may say, okay, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm thinking of looking to move, or maybe you just don't like the area. These are the things you might be thinking about here. But expansion does not mean reckless moves. It is all about preparation with Jupiter and Cancer. You might be taking on more responsibilities when it comes to your family, when it comes to being in the home, when it comes to managing bills, home upkeep, helping your parents. These are all things that can be happening when it comes to it being in your 4th house. There may be conversations about family planning, about inheritance, about building generational wealth, security. These are all things that happen with the 4th house. Cars, like buying some, or even just learning more about buying a car, which it's always better to buy in cash, guys, because cars are depreciating value. So just want to throw that out there as a tip. Moving, as I mentioned before, relocating. If you're going to be moving abroad, you're definitely going to be doing your research in this market. Okay, Jupiter and Cancer is going to want to push you to do so. And this is really great because it does show opportunities in all of these areas. As I mentioned before, Jupiter and Cancer was an improvement to economic opportunities. So all of these topics that we're talking about, these can come as a golden window of fortune. You may even see a great opportunity for you to move abroad, and you're like, okay, let me research the company, let me research where I can live, and then boom, you seize that opportunity. All right, so this can also be about setting up shop in your own home. Like if you are looking to work remotely, this is definitely opportunities expanding in that area. One thing I want to talk about when it comes to Jupiter and Cancer is the expansion of emotional maturity. It's just about growing up, guys. Being more responsible, no longer having a childlike mentality, or just, you know, taking on, as I mentioned before, more responsibilities, more obligations, taking more accountability for your actions, being more empathetic, and also being more in control of your emotions. Sometimes we make these impulse decisions, especially a lot when we're younger, but as we get older, these impulse decisions really, really hurt us. So be careful in that regard, but I do think you guys are already going to be careful. But I see opportunities coming in these areas for you for more peace of mind. More peace of mind may be coming your way these next 48 days. Now for Taurus, this is going through your third house, communication skills, social groups. So the focus, as we know, is on communication and everyday connections, your everyday life, your commute, and all of this jazz. Honestly, this can, I guess, I don't want to say lower your commute, shorten your commute in a way. And I say that because, Jupiter wants you to relax a bit. And if you have a very tense commute, maybe you're looking for opportunities for a new job or gaining a new skill that can get you out of your job so that you no longer have to deal with that. Expansion here can look like meeting someone new who can provide you with new opportunities, or maybe they're just a really good friend. That is also a possibility there. In terms of that, you may learn something that is very meaningful and beneficial that you can take with you in the long run. As I said, with skill building, there's so many different skills out there, from financial planning, from learning how to sew, from doing ballet. Like, so many things could be a skill. Like, I remember one time when I had Jupiter in my third house, I was learning how to use an editing program. So it was like a video editing program. And so these are skills that you can take with you throughout your life. Jupiter wants to make it easy for you. So if you've been struggling with that, then maybe you come across some videos where somebody's like breaking it down and making it very simple. Like I said, Jupiter is all about, let me provide you with some relief, here. All right. And then we also have, as I mentioned, upskilling, certification, classes, anything that's going to strengthen your job security. It all comes back to what we said before. Jupiter wants to provide you with stability. It wants to provide you with opportunities that make your life easy peasy. One Jupiterian movie that I really like is Pursuit of Happiness, which you can really see the Jupiterian energy there. How he is like, that's Will Smith's movie, and I think it's his actual son in it, Jaden. But in the movie, you see how hard he fought for that sense of stability, for that opportunity, for presenting himself in the right way and making sure that he secured a future for him and his son. People don't look at Jupiter that way. They don't think about the trials and tribulation of Jupiterian energy, but it is very much that wheel of fortune, ebb and flows of life energy. It's sometimes you create your own luck. And then also the combination of having that opportunity come to you. You have to be ready to seize it. And so when you have Jupiter in your third house, I actually love this because this is one of those house placements where you can create more of your own luck. So, also Taurus, you might be traveling, you might be meeting new people. Make sure that you aren't making any impulse planning in terms of your travels. I don't know if that will be the best idea under this transit, but I do think that if you have a solid plan, things are going to work out. It's going to go smoothly. You might even want to expand into content creation, writing, any sort of thing that has to do with communication. Just know that you're polishing your skills, and any risk you take will be cushioned a little bit. Okay. A little bit of a soft landing, even if things don't work out exactly the way you want it to. So Gemini rising, this is in your second house of finances, incomes, and incomes. Well, it could be incomes. You could have multiple incomes and values. So focus here is on your money, stability, any personal values. Jupiter here pushes you to build cautiously and not to gamble recklessly. Expansion here looks like, building your savings, paying down debt, creating a solid budget plan, saying no to pay later habits, avoiding risky credit use. Don't say, hey, I think I'm going to put my rent on my credit card. That makes no sense. Do not do that. Do not put your bills on your credit card. Okay. So here is Jupiter teaching you about money. Jupiter is, at the end of the day, a teacher, a guru, someone who is going to expand your mind in terms of finances. And because it's expanding your knowledge in that area, you're going to make some improvements in that area. All right. You might even be exploring investments, insurance, but sticking to those who may be like a safe bet, instead of investing, like if you're thinking about stocks, investing in individual stocks, you're like, you know what? I think I'm going to invest in an index fund or an ETF, because those are going to be safer. Those are going to have a lot more companies. So if the stock goes down, it's not going to go down too much. So you're thinking along the lines of that. And these are things that could be happening for you. One thing that I love about this placement with Jupiter going through your second house here is that it's a great time period for demanding your worth. Your wealth? Yeah. Well, you know what? If you demand your worth, you might get wealth. So it's a great time for asking for raises, ensuring that if you have your own company, if you have your own business, you might raise rates. It's about asserting your value. And if you don't feel valued in some place, you might just say, I'm out of here. It's all about, I'm not going to chase those risky opportunities. I'm going to build stability. I'm going to secure my savings. I'm going to have a 3-month emergency fund. I'm going to carefully stand in my worth. I'm going to spend time with people who value me. I'm going to understand what makes me feel secure, what makes me feel valued, what makes me feel good. I love this time period. This can also represent just some improvements overall in your physical health, just because Jupiter represents what goes into you. And so, as I mentioned before, in both areas, you might have some health concerns that cause you to change your eating habits and overall make you feel a little bit better. All right. So Cancer, and the Cancer, this is happening in your house. You are the star of the show. All right. This is about self-identity, direction. And remember, guys, this is sun, moon, and rising, right? So Jupiter here is just showing how you are growing as a person, just overall how you're doing, how you are improving in your life, and how others improve and how others see you. Okay. So this can represent taking on more leadership and just generally more independence, more responsibilities. I've seen people who've had Jupiter go through their first house. I know people, when they talk about Jupiter going their first house, the first thing they're like, I'm going to gain weight. Yeah, maybe. But some people, they lose weight. Jupiter just kind of going there just represents, I'm going to change your appearance. All right. For the most part, in the sign of Cancer, it's going to want you to have an appearance that is more, how do I say, more polished, more refined, more controlled. Cancer is very much a sign that is all about mastering your emotions, and thus it wants a lot of peace of mind. And so if your eating habits are unbalanced, it's going to be kind of tough. Cancers don't really do so well, when it comes to that. So Jupiter generally going through your first house is going to bring improvements to your appearance, is all I'm trying to say. There was something else I wanted to say here before I got into that. Oh, right. I generally see when people have Jupiter going through their first house, more independence. They move out. They have to pay some rent. They start buying their own house. Like they're paying their cell phone bill. They're off their parents' cell phone bill. It generally gives them more responsibilities in life. That's just what I've seen. Sometimes they get a raise. Sometimes they're like, okay, I'm a manager now. I'm a supervisor now. I have to look after people. Even if Jupiter doesn't give you children in itself, it may give you people you have to look out for. You're like, I have to take care of these people. I have to nurture them. I have to learn to provide them feedback to make them grow. Jupiter can do that. Also, as I'm saying, looking at here, this can help you navigate the workspace or understand social politics more. You might be paying attention more to that and deciding to move with diplomacy, encouraging others rather than pointing out their flaws. Not to say you won't notice their flaws, but you're like, you know what? I'm not going to say anything. As I mentioned before, this is about, recognizing where you might need to make some sacrifices in order to meet your long-term goals. You're cultivating emotional maturity, finding security in who you are becoming. So, for example, you might pursue a new life direction. Or as I said before, you might pursue different appearance. You'll test your research and you'll plan before committing to whatever new direction that you are going in. All right, on to you, wonderful Leos. This is happening in your 12th house of rest, reset, subconscious. Okay. So the focus here is all about shifting inward. It's about healing. It's about that behind the scenes work. It is about the house of self undoing. What are you doing to self sabotage yourselves, Leo? All right. So expansion here comes from not overexposure, but from creating balance. Okay. So this is about like pulling back from overcommitment, from setting firmer boundaries. And then sometimes this can be about understanding more about who you are, doing some deep self reflection in this area of your life. 12th house is tough. I'm not going to lie, because it can be about taking accountability. And we all know accountability is tough for all of us. You know, it's hard to say, hey, I was the one that was wrong, I was bugging, right? But it can also be about quietly building projects in the background before you reveal them to the public. It can be about paying off debts, lightening your load to create peace of mind. Sometimes this is about traveling, but as we noticed here, you're probably going to make more sensible travel moves in this area, just because, you know, that Cancer energy is just like, you know what? Let's play it safe. Let's not go on a $6,000 vacation right now. Do we really need to do that? Let's maybe just go to Florida, call it a day. So you might want to take some vacations, rest and relax, maybe even do a staycation, just to rejuvenate yourself. You've been working hard, Leos. I am very, very sure of it. So instead of scattering your energy everywhere right now, more than likely you're going to focus on, you know, clearing out any area of your life you've been overextending yourself into. So whether that is debts, whether it's that people kind of pulling at your time and energy. The 12th house here is like, oh, you know what? I'm actually not, I'm the opposite of Virgo. I'm not the house of service. I'm here to rest. So you're looking after your own well-being. And I actually love that for you. And then also, as I said, quietly working towards your goals, you know. Speaking of Virgos, hey, this is in your 11th house, networks, community goals, and gains. So the shift focuses to friendships, long-term goals. The growth comes through community and being cautious how you expand your reach. So in this case, this may look like, who am I surrounding myself? Who am I surrounding myself by? Number one, Jupiter is not like Saturn. So it is not going to be as discriminatory when it comes to who they surround themselves by. So Jupiter wants to expand, but at the same time, it's like, I want to expand my network to people who can level me up. Okay. And I'm not going to be as strict about who that person is. Obviously, I don't want them to be a terrible human being, but generally, I'm just looking to expand my network. So I am putting on my Sunday best. I am being very well mannered. I am using all of my social skills to make sure that I am getting those gains. Okay. And I'm promoting myself. I'm marketing myself. I am more than likely spending a little bit more time with friends. You know, this Jupiterian energy wants to be a counselor, wants to be around a lot of people, wants to make connections. So Virgos, you may even feel a little bit more sociable. I know, strange for a Virgo. You guys are hermits, but you may just feel that way these days for this next 48 days. You can also be looking for new ways where you can secure the bag. All right. Whether that is through job changes or promotions or leaning into your networks. As I said before, sometimes this is just expanding your social media. Maybe you're like, I need to expand my social media presence. I need to update my LinkedIn. I need to get myself out there. If you're into real estate, then this is definitely about investing in more properties. If you're into the stock market, this is definitely about how I'm going to pour in more money into the stock market. If this is about, like I said, just friendships, you're making more friends. You're trying to make more friends, or you're spending time with the friends you have. As I said before, it's about keeping your allies around you who align with your goals. You're like, it has to make sense. I have to surround myself with people who are goal oriented like me. I don't want to be around people who I feel are draining. So you're going to be chasing growth and income or even visibility, as I mentioned before, but you're going to be strategic about it. This is about seeking stable gains, not taking those wild risks, and deliberately making connections and avoiding people who may seem a little bit reckless or outside the box here. Now, Libra, this is going through your 10th house of career, public life, authority. So we all know that the focus is on career, reputation, work. This is great. It brings around more job opportunities. If it's not job opportunities, you'll definitely get some recommendations that you could probably use for a very long time. This is great reputationally. Generally, I've noticed Jupiter performs well in the 10th house. People look at you like you're a hard worker. People will generally find you very likable with this transit, unless you have something going on in your 10th house. But generally, for the most part, this is like, hey, you know what? I really like you. You're very helpful. You do such a great job. Like, this is pat on the backs by supervisors, by leadership, by coworkers. They're generally finding you to be enjoyable to be around. Okay. This can also be about accepting new promotions or roles, or, like I said, job opportunities. I will say with this placement, you're going to not want to take these wild risk, unless, like I said, unless you believe that this is going to make sense for your long-term goals, unless this is an opportunity that you can see has building blocks to it. You're not just doing it for the sake of, I need money. You're like, no, I actually need money, but this role has to make sense in the long run. I can't just take anything. So very calculated risk here. And then also sometimes this can mean a little bit of job hugging. As I said, maybe you want to make a career shift, but you're like, you know what? It might be easier right now just to convince my bosses to give me a raise so that I don't have to be out there in this job market, something along the lines of that. But as I mentioned, this is all about building credibility right now, not chasing any fast recognition, any fast wins, trying to get in good with people really quickly. You're like, no, I'm going to take it the long run. I'm going to study where this person has lunch. I'm going to study what kind of projects they like, what interests them. And then I'm going to try to get in with them so they can give me a raise, right? But definitely you're going to be using a lot of diplomacy in the workplace in terms of politics. I like this placement because generally it will prepare you for bigger opportunities when Jupiter is going through your house. So, golden opportunities right now for you, Libras, in terms of your career. So take advantage of that. It's probably already started already. You probably already have that energy coming in. Now, when it comes to you Scorpio risings, this is in your 9th house of travel, education, and belief. So the focus is on, education, all of that jazz. What do you personally think, your personal morals and systems and all of that jazz? What's your integrity based off? That's kind of like the 9th house, and also what motivates you. And then I've also found this house to represent like bosses to some degree, people who teach you, people in HR, people who might be like a supervisor. This can be this position as well. Obviously, lawyers and legal matters. This is all of that. So this can be about broadening your horizons. Okay. So this might be like, I'm going to enroll in an education program or certification. Sometimes it's not that literal though. Sometimes it's like, you know what? I want to learn in a non-institutional environment, and you're just learning through your friends. You're just learning through like your family. You might be going to the library. You might be going on YouTube. You might be looking up classes like on, why can't I think of that? Eventbrite. I always see Eventbrite classes, And one class I saw is like for braiding hair. I would love to take that class, but it's so expensive. But you might be doing something like that, right? You might be like, okay, I want to learn how to do box braids. So I'm going to look up a class and learn how to do it. It doesn't necessarily have to be this deep philosophy all the time, but it is a house of educating and learning. Okay. This can also be about like, hey, I want to travel. I want to go someplace and see where I can enjoy myself, or maybe you're even traveling to figure out where you want to live. Maybe there's some practical aspect to your traveling. And so you're like, okay, well, I'm traveling with that in mind. So maybe I want to stay there 2 weeks. Maybe I want to look at the local grocery stores, and I want to look at, car prices and getting around and what's gas look like. You're looking at all of these things in a practical sense, but maybe you're just traveling for fun, and you're making clear plans, you're budgeting. I'm going to emphasize that. And you're doing some practical considerations when it comes to your travel plans. This can also be about refining your worldview. Okay. Finding grounding in your own belief systems. Sometimes Jupiter in the ninth house can be like, I'm letting go of some belief systems. And then sometimes it's about, I'm digging deeper into it. Like you might look up debates. Like if you, let's say you're a Christian, you might look up debates that people are having within Christianity about the Bible, or matters to do with, there's so many different areas of religion, the 10 commandments or something like that. But you might just want to go deeper into that, right? That's just another way to do that. And then sometimes this can just expand your luck. If you have some sort of legal matters going on, this can definitely be like, hey, I'm giving you a leg up in this area, and I'm softening the blow, if there is a blow, or I'm giving you some sort of win. That is quite possible. Now, Sagittarius, this is going through your eighth house, shared resources, transformation, depths. Now, this rules you, Sagittarius. You know that. So, this is some big stuff here. Now, Sagittarius, this really is majorly transformative, because generally you see Jupiter going through the eighth house, the house of transformation, and it's just going to say that it's an intense period for you, to be completely honest. It can feel as though you're going through a transition phase within your life. All right. And whether that be you are ending a relationship, maybe you are becoming a parent, maybe you are changing a job, maybe you're moving, maybe you're graduating. But generally, when you have this Jupiter going through your eighth house, you're going to be going through a transformative period in your life. One good thing about this is that, obviously, because the eighth house is a house of shared income, it's a financial house, you're more than likely going to have more financial opportunities. Like we just talked about in the history, is that Jupiter is generally good in terms of economic recovery. So if you've been down bad, it's time to get some economic uplifting, or some moments to celebrate here. Okay. And obviously this can look like potentially getting an inheritance, settlements, paying off credit card debt, paying off student loans, more job opportunities. I'll say this, it's easier to get a job with Jupiter in Cancer, but just like the history has shown, what I have seen with this particular transit is that it may not have the best wages, but you will be able to secure a job for sure. So you're not going to be, during this period, unemployed, unless you are really, shooting to do that. But generally, Jupiter is going to have your back when it comes to the money during this period. This can also look like, getting alimony, managing inheritances, managing insurance, managing any sort of joint, financial custody of things that you might have. Sometimes this can represent navigating power struggles as well, whether that be within relationships or asserting boundaries, whether that's at work or with friends or family. That can happen with this house. We know the eighth house has to do with all of that power struggle stuff. But I will say this is generally a positive transit, right? It's about saying, hey, like I'm going to give you an opportunity to stand up for yourself, to navigate these weird situations if you have some weird people you're interacting with, and get those people out of your life. Time to expunge them here. But definitely you're going to be experiencing some deep transformation. It can feel like moving through I guess deep water in a sense, and your security is more than likely going to be coming from your ability to overcome challenges. But I will say with this, I think this is a good placement when it comes to transforming yourself emotionally. So if you're somebody who can be very reactive, or if you're going through a stressful period, you may be prone to sabotaging behaviors that cannot be that great for you. Well, during this period, it can represent a transformative transformation in terms of emotional maturity. So you grow a little bit. So I just want you guys to know that. Um, Now let's go on into Capricorns. All right. So, with you, beautiful Capricorns, this is in your seventh house of relationships and partnerships, also the house of the market. Sorry if I'm leaning this way, guys. My chair's at an awkward angle. The house of partnerships. So, expansion here can really look like I'm meeting people. Oh, also, just to go back to you, Sagittarius, real quick, this is also a period where you can meet some people. Just want to throw it out there. All right. Just because it's the house of intimacy. But now back to you, Capricorns. I'm so sorry. But this can be about deepening bonds and forming partnerships, um, generally forming better agreements or contracts, especially if it comes to anything financial or work related. You're definitely going to make some strong negotiations and being able to fight for yourself. This is about formalizing any commitments in terms of marriage, as I said, contracts, partnerships, collaborations. During this period, when we think of contracts, sometimes we just think of work, but it can just be really any contract that you have to sign. Sometimes you have to sign contracts to, like, I remember going to a spa location. It's like this big spa, and they make you sign a contract to enter. When it comes to this, it's going to make sure that the contracts you signed are a little bit more beneficial, a little bit more in your favor. You may start to notice some shady things, like your eyes might naturally go to things and you're like, wait a minute, and before you sign, and you're like, I don't agree with that. And you might avoid signing that. This can definitely represent meeting people who are more serious, or who are more than likely being cautious about those who they commit to, because we saw that both times when Jupiter was in Cancer, that people were like, let's be careful and very cautious about those who we're spending our time with. And so when it comes to, if you're actually single and looking for someone, you may take your time with that. You may take your time really looking into that person to see if they are the right fit for you. Also, what I've noticed is, with Jupiter in Cancer and your seventh house, this is just opportunities to meet people, as we mentioned before with the dating game. Definitely more opportunities. Definitely more opportunities to meet people. Okay, I don't want to hear the excuses here, guys. But also, even if you're not meeting people, this can definitely represent you're putting yourself out there in the public. So there's that. There's that. Whether you're creating content, whether you're an actor, actress, whatever the case may be, you could just be your local bartender. I don't know. But maybe you start having karaoke nights, and now they get all the bartenders involved, and now everyone's like, oh my gosh, you're such a good singer, and whatever the heck it may be. But that can be something going through your seventh house where you're getting more attention and more limelight on you. So I just want you guys to know that Cancers, this is definitely great for any sort of business. And then also, let me think, if I'm missing anything when it comes to the seventh house with Cancer in it. This is a good opportunity in terms of career expansion, in terms of gaining any like accolades or applause or anything like that. It's really just like a pat on the back. Like, look at you, you've accomplished something, you've got a certification, you've got a certificate, you've got a new promotion, because the seventh house is 10th from the 10th. So it also connects to your career. So you can get some pats on the back there in terms of that. Some blessings. This next 48 days may bless you in that manner. Now, Aquarius, this is going through your sixth house of work, health, and daily routines. I know it sounds boring. It sounds boring with Jupiter here, but one thing I noticed about Jupiter going through your sixth house is it will give you some good opportunities. Job-wise, they may not be the most exciting jobs, but they'll definitely be you'll definitely have opportunities to be able to sustain yourself. So keep in mind with that. This is also about building some practical habits that will keep you healthy, especially with Jupiter in Cancer. Cancer is very health-oriented sign. It's also very focused and driven. And so this is a great opportunity to really commit to a health routine that may be beneficial for you for the rest of your life, or at least for the next 12 years, right? We never know. Anytime I've seen people have Jupiter transit their sixth house, they generally will change their eating habits or even exercising habits, whether that's exercising more, exercising less. Generally in Cancer, it's going to want you to do it a little bit more. Now, what exercise you might do, who knows? But you're definitely going to be a little bit more picky about what you eat. So that's something that can happen here when it comes to that. This can be great about relieving any sort of stress or even sort of diagnosing problems, even if it doesn't provide a sense of relief. Like let's say you've had depression or something like that, but you didn't know you had depression. And then you go to therapy, they properly diagnose you with depression, and now you can be treated for your depression. I've noticed these types of things happen when Jupiter going through to your sixth house. It can create more knowledge, especially since it's in the sign of Cancer, which has to do with your mental health and your emotional world. These sort of psychological health matters come to the surface, and you can get some help and assistance in that area for sure. But this is generally about creating stability when it comes to how you manage your time, when it comes to how you manage your energy, and even when it comes to how you manage your money, because the sixth house is a financial house as well. This can definitely bring about an increase in responsibilities. I'm not going to lie. Especially when it comes towards your family, when it comes towards your pets, when it comes to your own house or your apartment, your rent. You might have to just do a little bit more there to keep it clean, to keep it tidy, keep it up tight, keep it tight. I don't know, but there just may be more responsibilities there. Maybe some things are breaking down. Maybe you're just like, dang, I got to replace this fridge. I got to replace this laundry machine, and there's some responsibilities in that area. But at the same time, it could be good because Jupiter is like, I've got you a nice new laundry machine. I know you had to pay for it, but or maybe you didn't. Sometimes if you get your landlord might pay for it. So there's that. All right. Last but not least, we have you, beautiful, beautiful Pisces. This is going through your fifth house of creativity, romance, and children, and also house of education and skill sets and natural talents. So here, what expansion may look like is that you more than likely might be pursuing some connections if you're single. This is if you're single. And I know a lot of my audience is single, so I'm talking to you guys. But if you're genuinely trying to pursue some connections, this is actually really great for you all. It will bring you increased opportunities, more people for you to meet that you could potentially build a future with, start a family with, all of that jazz in terms of that. And if you're in a relationship, this can just bring about more romance in your life where you guys just feel, well, it may be more simplistic in terms of your dates. Maybe you're just doing cute things like picnics, just because we saw that economic energy that Jupiter brings with it, which is generally going to be a little bit more conservative. So more than likely, it's just like, hey guys, we want to dial it back a little bit, and we just want to have a nice, cute picnic together. We want to have a nice romantic dinner night. I'll cook for you. These are the things that could be happening if you're in a relationship. Now, this is definitely an expansion of creativity in your life. Now, one thing that may happen here when it comes to your creative projects, you might have some extravagant ideas, but you're not going to want to throw them all out there. You're going to want to start small and sort of like build upon it. And more than likely, you want to go the safe routes. Sometimes with other placements or signs, this can represent just like going a little bit overboard, like Rahu type of energy. Like, I'm going to do something extravagant. But since this is in Cancer, this is like, let's dial it back a little bit. Let's scale it back slightly. I want to keep it simple. I want it grounded. In all areas that have to do with creativity, romance, or even in terms of your education. Maybe you're like, I don't want to do the most. I don't want to come out with a 15, 20 slide presentation. Let me just do the bare minimum, get the job done when it comes to that. But also, dating is still can be very enjoyable, even if you scale it back. These experiences will highlight emotional security, long-term compatibility. These are all the things that you're going to be focusing on. You're going to have some realistic budgets when it comes to your creative projects. If you are like a YouTuber or like into content creation, you're going to be like, okay, I'm going to make sure I have low overhead. So instead of buying like these $1,000 cameras, you're like, okay, let me buy a small camera and then I will expand. This can also represent, like I said, it's the education house of natural talents. And so one thing I noticed about this is that you might even be trying new things. With this Pisces energy, this is very exploratory, but you may not want to just go all in. For example, you're not like, you know what, I want to be a pilot, so I'm going to just go to pilot school. You're like, okay, well, let me actually see what that experience is like flying a plane first before I go and do it. So I really do feel like this is a very testing the waters period. Definitely Jupiter, when it comes to the fifth house, is about expanding your fun. Another thing that this can do is it can expand your free time. As we mentioned before, a lot of people ended up spending more time at home, not because they wanted to, but because it just happened to be that way. So one thing I see that happens with this placement is that people, sometimes they get laid off. I don't want to give negative news, but sometimes that can happen. But then sometimes it's just like you need time for rest and recovery. And so you decide to take more vacation days, and that's happening for you. And then also this can be considered practical planning around children or family. So that is what I have for you all in terms of what is going on, what could be happening, the beautiful period of Jupiter and Cancer for 48 days. Hopefully you guys loved it. I will obviously be making sure that I play this back. Make sure I edit a short so you can listen to it back, clip it up. For those of you who just want a little quick recap. Now, if you want the 12 signs, you're going to have to come and watch this beautiful video. I will be here on Friday for the regular live, and then I'm going to be here on Sunday for the members only live. If you want to pre-submit your questions, feel free to do so. If not, I will be there at that time. But yeah, make sure that you hit me up. My email is in pretty much every video. And that is all I wanted to say for now. I wanted to come on and do this video. I will see you guys Thursday with a new reading that is going to be out. Make sure you answer the polls. Make sure you get a private reading. I am happy to do these types of videos for you. And hopefully I'll see you next month with another video if I have time. So it's a little chaotic. So you may not see me till the end of December for a new astrological video, and that's going to be fine. That's fine. Okay. I just wanted to get this information out to you guys. That's all the announcements I have for now. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Be sure to like, be sure to comment, be sure to subscribe. It encourages me to continue to make more videos like this because I know some of you really, really enjoy this content. And that is all. I'm going to leave it there, and I will see you guys next time. I don't think I have any announcements. I'm trying to think. I'm like rambling on because I'm trying to think, do I have any announcements? My hair is a mess. I need to like redo it. But I don't think so. At least none I want to premiere for right now. They're going to premiere. I have some announcements for tomorrow. Very happy to surprise you with it. Be sure to listen in. Be sure to tune in. Be sure to watch this back. I'll probably post the timestamps a little bit later this week. I'm a little bit busy right now. Okay. But there's that. And I will see you guys next time. Au revoir.